how you know your Ramadan was accepted.
Yes, sir.
Right? Like the deed that continues after Ramadan,
Yes,
it's
sir.
a sign that Allah accepted your qiyam or your siyam, right? And even those habits, so Ramadan is the best time to build habits because you're not distracted. I mean, even those little
That's key,
things
bro.
that
It's a favor. You're not distracted by other things, bro.
Yeah.
How often do you guys working just thinking about food, bro?
Yeah.
Oh, what I gotta do this, and like, it distracts you, bro. Now you don't gotta worry about none of that, dude.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts Sheikh Amer and Mort. I thought I had to hit live before.
No, I thought we were live too, but it's all good. It's beautiful. We got a lot of good things to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a nice warm up. Sometimes you need a warm up, bro.
Yeah. We just wanted to start a show with you guys. Just break some iftar, break some bread, as they say, or dates.
Break some dates with you.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. Break some dates. Sheikh, you got
Sheikh, do you want to try these wonderful?
So I'm not gonna
dates?
lie. I was gonna do a review on, but I couldn't hold back. Mort has supplied us, mashallah, with some beautiful sukkari dates from the Khalij, right? And these are the marinated
from Medina.
From Medina, Allahu Akbar.
Yes.
And these
From
are
my
actually
people.
marinated in their own date syrup.
Yes.
Mort actually refers to them as marinated sukkari dates, and I'm telling you, bro, this is like,
Try one.
if you have a sweet tooth, like, just, I know dates are very important to us in Ramadan, and we break our fast with the Sunnah, but this, guys, is the ultimate dessert, bro. Like, just look at the syrup all over. This is natural syrup, no extra sugar. Yeah, put it in front of the camera.
Put it in front of the camera.
Give me one. I'm gonna show the TikTok
We
people.
can focus in on this.
Look at the syrup
Let's
on
see
this,
here.
bro.
Let's see here. Oh,
Yeah, look at that.
How do I get this
Mashallah.
focus in?
Oh, what do you know? I have a date right in front of me.
Maybe you can have a date for once in your life.
Plates gain dates. What's that?
So
thing?
I have a funny story about this.
This
So
is
my uncle,
very odd looking. It looks kind of
it's
demented.
a double date.
There's
It's
two
a
of them.
double.
There's two
Oh,
of
they
them.
break off.
Yeah, we're having two dates.
It's a
right
double
now.
date.
Two dates, sure.
Yes,
Have
thank
one.
you. Yes, I will. You have one too.
All
Why don't we all have one?
All right,
Bismillah.
let's go. Bismillah. Let's try it out. Alhamdulillah, bro. So good.
Oh, just seemed to me.
It doesn't need anything else.
I like all dates. They all
Bro,
taste good to
it
me.
is the ultimate dessert.
You know, for the longest time, for many years, I did not like dates, and I didn't want to tell my fellow Muslims that I didn't like dates.
Wow, that's weird since you're from Medina, bro.
No, it was very odd, very conflicting areas of my
Why, you just didn't like
personality.
the texture, or what was it?
It just didn't do much for me. Like, this is a date, like. And so I forced myself to like it. I'm like, this is something that.
Now, you said, I don't mean to pry into your personal business, but you said it didn't do
Oh.
too much for me. Are you a person that's a little down type of person? I'm kind of like, when you're down, you got to have something sweet.
Debbie
No,
Downer.
I like that sweet things, Sheikh.
I see.
But it just the texture. I just felt like it was too sweet. It hits you all at once. The granules kind of just get stuck in your mouth for a little bit.
I see what you're saying.
The little skin. The little
Yeah.
shards of skin.
So I'll
Just
tell you
flake off.
something.
No.
No. It is a different kind of taste. It's a different kind of fruit. But I appreciated dates more when I decided that I'm not going to break my fast with dates. It was something else, and then I realized the benefit of the date.
Yeah. Then you come back to it.
I'm like, oh man, I can't break
Yeah.
my fast with anything but a date,
Yeah,
bro.
exactly. Yes, sir.
And there's certain, I think, not only spiritual. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ says in the Hadith that there is barakah in dates. Especially like if you don't have anything, if you don't have dates, then have water because it's pure. But dates is recommended, mustahab, to break your fast with. But even tahniq, like when the child is born,
Yes, sir.
even for the mother who is post birth, right?
Oh, yeah,
like
I did that. I did that with my son.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, I took the date and I rubbed it in his gums.
On the
Yeah, yeah.
palate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the science behind it is that sometimes with women who have given birth, their blood sugars drop. There's postnatal diabetes, like we have hypoglycemic. They drop in their blood sugar, and for the child, when they're disconnected from the mother, from the umbilical cord, that sends a shock to the body.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
so
that.
the sugar kind of opens up the palate, and then the esophagus and the whole digestive system gets everything moving, and it gives them that burst of sugar they need to kind of start crying, essentially, right? Like to get their lungs open and everything, right? So there's a whole barakah behind it that we don't even realize.
No, I was smiling because I know that there's one brother who was telling me about this, that he was in the delivery room when his wife gave birth, and he didn't realize, he actually thought he was supposed to put the date in the baby's mouth. And I was like, dude, like, how do you put a whole? What do you think's gonna happen, bro? It's a baby. You're only supposed to rub a little bit of it. You know the hadith is you
Wait,
take
he
a little
tried to
bit.
put a whole day.
I didn't. What do you mean? I said a brother. This guy said brother.
A brother.
No. So when he did that, he left in there with a small date, and the doctor like, take it out, take it out, take it out. It's like, no, it's my religious obligation. It's like, no. So when he was telling me, he was thinking he had like 5 kids later, you know. But when he was telling me about that, I was like, wow. That must have been pretty traumatizing
That is
for
some
everybody.
serious tawakkul, bro.
Yeah. Bro, that ain't tawakkul. That's bro.
Yeah,
but
alhamdulillah.
dude, it's a huge blessing, man. I think one of the hadith that we're going through even before this this podcast, we were just discussing some hadith, and Sim thought this was a good idea. The maestro he is, mashallah. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to read this hadith, inshallah. أخرج Imam Muslim min hadith Abu Hurairah. Imam Muslim documented in his Sahih compilation on the report and the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال, that Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, للصائم فرحتان. The Sa'im has two, the person who's fasting has two joys. فرحة حين يفطر, the joy and the happiness and the tranquility also, if you want to say that, when he breaks his fast. وفرحة حين يلقى ربه, and the joy when he meets his Lord. This hadith is so profound, right? And everyone can actually think of how merciful Allah is through this hadith. Is that Allah created us, He knows what we want, and He knows our inclinations, and He knows when we're fasting for His sake that we just want to have something to eat and drink. And imagine, there's something that you should think about as the people, you know, talking about being productive. Imagine the first Ramadan the believers had the Battle of Badr in Ramadan, right? In the hot, scorching sun, minimum 115, 120 degree weather for hours, right? And imagine the joy they had when they can break their fast then. The other narration is this. This other narration explains the remainder of the hadith. وَلِلصَّائِمِ فَرْحَتَانِ. And the Sa'im has two, the person who's fasting has two joys. إِذَا أَفْطَرَ, when he breaks his fast, فَرِحَ بِفِطْرِهِ, he is happy about breaking his fast. وَإِذَا لَقِيَ رَبَّهُ, and when he meets his Lord, فَرْحَةٌ بِصَوْمِهِ, or فَرِحَ بِصَوْمِهِ, when he meets his Lord, he is actually going to recollect the happiness of him fasting for the sake of his Lord. So the hadith actually is indicating that, number one, the person who's going to be fasting is going to meet their Lord with happiness, right? If you talk with starting with the end of the hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows His creation, and He knows that when they break their fast and when it's time to break their fast, they're anxious, and that's a good anxiousness. That's why we do at least some type of dhikr before we break our fast, in that happiness, right? In that joy, because then the dua, it's a favor from Allah. You're going to be doing dua from the heart, bro. It's inevitable. And when you do dua from the heart, it's accepted. So Allah is constantly just showering us with favors, and He's going to be happy that when he meets his Lord, because he was one who used to fast, right? So Ramadan is just millions upon millions of rewards that we wouldn't even think about, man. You know, Allah preserve us in our iman, man.
Ameen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in Ramadan, like, people slow down. I have this burst of energy in Ramadan.
Yeah, bro, especially before fasting. Especially before breaking your fast.
Yes.
I get goofy.
Yeah, I mean, we had to console you and control you for
They had to control me a little bit.
Yeah.
I was getting out of hand.
But yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of that has to do with the habits that you have in Ramadan. Because if you choose to like, oh, it's Ramadan, I'm fasting. You know, sometimes, you know, when we were little, you know, we started fasting. I don't know, but we're on the same age. I mean, similar, same age. But when we started fasting, it was a peak of summer. Do you remember that? It's the peak of summer. Like, I mean, it was like July-ish time. It was like a long day, and we would tell ourselves, "Oh, I deserve a break." You know, I'm not gonna go to Taraweeh because, you know, we fasted today. We did this.
Those days were long, though.
Those days were so. I was just telling my son this because, you know, he was feeling sick, and I'm like, "Okay, go ahead, break your fast if you're feeling that sick," you know. But then I was like, "Man, if that was my mom, and that was me when I was fasting, she'd say, "Oh, there's just 2-3 hours left. No problem. Don't, you know,
take a nap."
Yeah, go ahead, go and take a nap or something. Like, our parents were just built different, man,
yeah,
and that's
a different breed.
They
of people.
just made us different too. And I think there's a lot to learn from, because I think a lot of times what we do is we look at our parent generation, and we don't really appreciate, because we think of them as they're not as refined. they're a bit
Rougher
rougher
on
on
the
the
edges,
edges,
yes,
and,
sir.
and the problem is that kind of makes you a little arrogant in that mindset. You got to see that
We felt
that-
enlightened. That's the problem.
they knew the value of suffering a little bit. They knew that
Being
a little
uncomfortable.
pain is good for you.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah, bro.
Like
You know?
being uncomfortable is okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't think we get that these days.
Yeah.
As parents, I think I'm failing that.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that regard.
I mean, I think it comes from an idea that, you know what it is? Like, as a parent, you always want to give the best to your child, right?
Of course.
But sometimes I think that's the definition between, like, responsible love and irresponsible love.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, and I look at this sometimes between the dichotomy between parents, like mother and father sometimes, right? Like, for example, your father, even though he wants to let you sleep at Fajr, he hates waking you up. He hates it. You're his child, right? But he's going to do it. Like, he'll throw water on you. My dad would like, kick me a leg, bro, like rip off the blanket, whatever, right? My mom at times, like if my dad was in the atakaf, my mom was there, like sometimes she wouldn't wake me up because she didn't have the heart to wake me up,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes that love, it overpowers what's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
right, you know?
exactly.
And in this case, it's like, you know, you remember growing up, you know, oh man, it was kind of tough for us. It was kind of tough, right? I don't want my kid to feel that, right? And some people, for right reasons, they say they don't want people to resent something, right? Like, for example, like we were just talking about this earlier. Like the reason why, alhamdulillah, for me to go through a number of juz in a day is easy for me because my dad would force me to recite every day. And people, like cousins and stuff, would hate to come over because my dad was, before we did anything, any kind of fun, you read Quran first.
That's
Doesn't matter
actually
how
really
difficult
smart.
it
It's
is,
a great
right?
incentive.
But that, but some people would say, oh, he gave you a negative experience with the Quran,
Yeah.
right? Because, and I would say, yeah, maybe when I was a little, but in this age now, I value that so much.
Yes, sir. Heck yeah.
Right?
I agree 100%. I just had something
Yeah.
similar with my son. I was telling him, I was like, the reason why it's difficult for us to do something is because we want you to be comfortable. We don't want to push you away from Islam. We don't want to be responsible for that. So parents are always in a very difficult situation. But when you grow up, you realize, you think, man, I wish, like, you see how much you're capable of when you get older. Like, man, I wish my parents were more strict on me. You have that regret, right? And you kind of carry that over to your kids, but you still have to be careful about that too, because you've never been in that situation of raising a kid at this age, because they're always growing at different ages, right? And this is like your first time, and you have to let them know, look, man, I don't know everything. I may make mistakes, but to my best understanding, I think this is the best, and we could talk about it, but you have to do this, and I'm going to do it with you, type thing, you know?
Yeah.
But you have to understand, bro, when you get older, number one, what you were talking about is, bro, you start realizing the value of your parents when you have your own kids, and as they get older and start asking you intriguing questions, you're like, dude, my parents did all this and all that, and they didn't have they only had a fraction of what we had, bro.
Yeah.
They had nothing, absolutely nothing compared to what we did, and they were soldiers. And the other is that you don't want to put your kids in a situation where they get older, where they say, man, why weren't you more tough on me? Because that's there too, and that's a challenge, bro. That's a fitna
Bro,
as
you
well,
know
bro.
how,
It is,
but
man.
you know how insane it is. Before I would break a fast now, like I would have to be in such bad shape for me to break a fast. But now, if I imagine like this generation, this younger generation,
Yeah,
if they end up feeling sick a little or a little headachy and stuff, they're ready to break their fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's, if we're going to talk, I think we're all victims of this, right? Because we live in this quote unquote first world. So this idea, we've talked about this before, the instant gratification, right? The idea of delaying something and struggling a little bit and being uncomfortable out of your skin in order to get a delayed reward is something foreign to most people. It's becoming more and more foreign. And for the believer, that is the epitome of iman, of even yaqeen, right? That we know for certain that Allah is going to give us something better than this dunya can ever give us.
Yeah. But not only that, the more he wants for you, the more he's going to test you.
Yeah. So but that's exactly the point.
Exactly.
And that means the yaqeen is stronger because you know, hey, no matter what it throws at me, like I look at it like, bro, like you're holding on to like this, like I'm holding on to this phone and you're telling me, hey, don't let it go for whatever reason, whatever comes in, because if you don't, I'm gonna give you like $1 million. I'm never letting go of this phone,
yeah,
right? I'm holding on
It's a
to
great
it.
example.
But that yaqeen, that knowing I'm getting that $1 million, i.e., or I'm getting Jannah, is like that motivating, right? You have to have that yaqeen, that certainty, that delayed. Like I could say, oh, if you leave it now, I'll give you 10 grand. If you leave it now, I'll give you 100 grand, right? You can start doing that, but then you know that holding on to that the reward you're gonna get for when you endure it patiently is going to be much, much, much greater.
Yeah.
And that relationship a believer has is unique to the believer, right? That's why the hadith, I don't know if you can recall it, but remember how strange is the affair of the believer?
Yeah.
Right? The hadith where it says something like, no
if he
matter
goes
what.
through hardship, he stays patient, and if he goes through and he has good, he shakar,
Yeah. So,
Shakar?
I mean, no matter what
shakar,
happens.
he's patient. No, he's thankful.
Yeah.
So if he goes through hardship, he's patient, and if he has ease, he's thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's something.
wondrous is the affair of the believer. Yeah.
Wondrous, that's what it is. Or ajib, or something strange. Yeah, wondrous. Yeah.
عجبا لأمر المؤمن.
Yeah. But I mean, so again, but I think there has to be a balance like that. We can't be too like tough because I'll say one thing. Not to downplay what our parents did, but the times we're living in today is very, very different. I mean, the way in which society and the non-Muslims are attacking children, specifically children today, is unprecedented.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, when we were growing up, Islam and Muslims in our community were relatively unknown to people. We kind of were under the radar.
Yeah.
Nobody really bothered us. Nobody questioned us. Now, unfortunately, I mean, in the younger generation, people younger than us and children, they're constantly being forced to wrestle with this idea: am I this or am I that?
Yeah.
How Muslim am I, or how much do I need to
My
be?
parents are authority. If they try to act authoritative, put an X on them.
Yeah, right. I
Right.
mean, there's so many ideas that they're being bombarded with that it's a losing battle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's an uphill battle, I should say, not losing. It's an uphill battle. So you have to put more effort and more care into how you raise your children.
Yeah, and a part of caring is not just automatically blasting them with difficulty. That hardship in measure has to be given from a young age. And when I mean hardship is you have to get used to them doing certain acts of worship that they may not like from a younger age. If you just start them at the age of 13 or 14, I mean, then that's being oppressive, right? And some of us, some parents, Allah bless all of us and our parents and our families and all Muslims. Some of us have a changing scenario or way of life in the middle of our life when our kids are older. And that's where the fitna is even more, because as a family unit, you're used to not being practicing, and all of a sudden dad or just mom or dad and mom become practicing, and now you have to, how are you going to navigate teaching your kids now when you have this sudden zeal for Islam, right? It's not easy, bro.
That's
it's
so
very
true.
difficult.
And that's why it's interesting too, because you know why? SubhanAllah. Islam tells you, when your child's a certain age, like 6 or 7 years old, you have to start mandating certain things, right?
Yes, sir.
And, in America, we always hear this thing that, they're so young. Let them be children. Let them be children. Like they even do this with the age of Aisha radiallahu anha, right? Say, let them be children. But in Islam, either you're unaccountable or you're accountable.
Yep.
There's no adolescence, teen,
either a boy
young,
or a man,
either you're a boy or a man, girl or woman,
no adolescence.
right?
Yep.
And the wisdom behind it is because once you let them get set in their ways, for anybody, even things other than Islam, once you're set in your ways for 15, 20, 30 years, and then you want to change, it's very, very difficult to change. But when you grow up with it, it's so much easier. It's almost embedded in you. You can't picture any other way of living.
Yep, it's your normal default of operation, right? Like, think about what adolescence actually is. The nafs always needs leeway and cushioning. It needs procrastination. So when you give somebody in the height of their years of procrastination time to procrastinate and just you're forgiven for everything on a worldly level, it's going to be so hard to rebound and try to be a good Muslim, bro, because the nafs needs that adolescence phase to mess up as much as you can, just write it off. You're not accountable right now. And it's that adolescence thing. I personally believe that's a manifestation of the nafs, just getting the idea from the nafs and just projecting it on everybody. Take more time to mess up, and in actuality you're accountable then. You know what I'm saying? It's a huge deception in my personal
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, what are your thoughts, Sim? Like, I mean, you're like a super parent.
He's in the middle of doing a symposium right now.
No, you guys are right. I think you guys covered it.
Yeah.
But one of the most important things that we have to realize as we're doing this show right now, the idea was breaking our fast with our convert brothers and sisters who came to Islam recently, who have who are most likely spending iftar alone, you know, and we have to figure out or identify who those are in our community. Do whatever we can to make them feel included, and invite them to any kind of community gatherings. If you can invite them to your home, that's even better.
Yes, sir.
But at least be aware of what's going on in your community, and then invite them to it. Make sure that they feel welcome, that they're not sitting alone. You know, there's just so many little things you can do to make them feel welcome, and it's honestly, it upsets me when it's not upsetting that we're welcoming them initially. We have a lot of enthusiasm on the day of their accepting Islam, and we give all kinds of hugs and embraces. Well, I'm here for you, anything, bro. You know, we're your family now. All kinds of statements are made, but the follow up from that rarely ever happens. You know, where we just kind of let them fend for themselves. We don't really give them the help they need, you know, because sometimes they're ostracized from their family for their beliefs. Some of them are fortunate enough that their family's accepting. You know, I'm not going to paint everyone with a broad stroke, but
and if you've ever traveled, Sam, you've probably done Umrah. Have you ever done Eid in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
Bro, like if you traveled, you get a taste of it. But we know that we're still kind of a Muslim land, but you still got to get a taste of it when you're.
Dude, I had that.
You have to break your fast alone and do Eid alone.
So before I mention this, just a quick shout out for anyone that's in Chicagoland area. If you are alone or a revert, or you're traveling, you have nobody around. Every Friday at Ambiance banquet halls in Villa Park, Illinois, there will be an iftar with the community. Brothers have arranged it. All you have to do is show up. There's no reservation needed. I am going to be there on Fridays. Just because
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, so Irfan, his brother, and their folks have organized this. So if you know anyone if you're listening and you're in Chicago, or even if you're not lonely, you just want to come out and you want to meet, I'm going to be there. But I was thinking about doing this for just Muslims in general, for people who are alone. I always talk about it. I say Eid, but now I wanted to do, like, you know, Iftar, right?
That's great.
So this is a great opportunity where it's at a, you know, banquet hall, it can accommodate and everything. So it is Ambiance in Villa Park. It's right by Islamic Foundation. So don't worry about missing Taraweeh. You can go.
Yes, sir.
Right after, it's like literally a minute away. But yeah, so if you are in the area, or if you are in Chicago, or if you just want to roll through, I don't know if you're visiting, but anyway, it's going to be in what do you call it? In Villa Park at Ambiance banquets. But speaking about what you were just mentioning about being alone and isolated, I was in Hungary for 6 months, maybe back in 2015, and it was in Ramadan in the summertime. It was like in toward the end of summer at this time. It was like I want to say it was like maybe in August time sometime. Anyways, I was one of maybe like 15 Muslims in the entire country. Okay, I mean, I don't think country, but that area in Budapest, because there are Magyar Muslims who are in the country, but in that area, let me tell you about this. Okay, I was doing Ramadan there, and it was I would break my fast alone. I would, you know, like everything alone. I had to pray my own Taraweeh. Like, I'd hold the Mus'haf in my hand, pray. There was another brother who was a Muslim that was with me, but he was with his family, so it was kind of different. He had to take care of them too. But I remember I had to go to Dubai because I was like, listen, I prayed. Imagine it, at Jumat al-Wida, there was 5 people.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
5 people.
I can't hear you guys.
I'm so sorry. I got to head out, inshallah, because I have a long drive. I apologize, guys. Salam, it was good seeing you.
Salam alaikum.
It was good seeing you guys. And inshallah, we can, maybe with the iftar things with the convert brothers and sisters, we can actually set up exactly on its time so we can do it together, inshallah. Salam, y'all.
Salam alaikum. Who do we have with us?
Robert. Yeah, how do I add myself to the stream? I think that's why he can't hear me.
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to add the cam, open the cam. I don't know. Start cam. I don't know if it'll work though. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Rahmatullah. We can hear you. Yeah, brother. What's going on, Robert?
Check. 1 2 1 2.
Wait, I don't think he can hear us though. What's going on here? Audio.
Wait, yeah. You go to audio.
I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, 1 second.
Remove me. And
is there something? Can you hear us?
Wait.
Check, check, check. One,
Check.
two, 1, 2.
How about now?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you guys.
Okay.
How about now?
Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Maybe it might be the audio
Check,
feed
check,
too.
check, check.
Here.
Mm-mm-mm.
Sorry, Rob, we didn't really check the functionality right now because we put some new equipment in and we forgot to check this functionality.
Well, we can hear you though.
Yeah, we can hear you. So also we're also live
Check,
on
check.
TikTok.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Can you hear us? No.
I can't hear you guys.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, unmute yourself.
Unmute. How about?
Hey,
How
go
about now?
ahead now. Can you hear us? Hello?
Hello.
I'm gonna go out and back in again. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways.
Check, check. 1, 2. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
No,
I
but
can't hear you guys.
Okay, hello. Can you hear us?
Let me try it again. I'm gonna
I
try
think
the
it's
link
something
again.
on
I'm
our
gonna
end.
go out and come back.
Yeah. I think it's something on our end though.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, we'll figure it out. By the way, if somebody wants to join in on, you can tell people in the chat. By the way, on YouTube, you can join in on TikTok. Just go to Mort TMM, and we're also live on TikTok. So if it's easier for you to jump in from that way, you can just join in from there as well too, and kind of give you 2 cents. So Rob, if you're listening, just go to Mort TMM on TikTok, and you'll be able to see you'll be able to see it live.
Oh wait, over here.
Okay, wait. There you go. Okay, that should be it.
Hello. That's it.
All right, there you go. Okay, we see it now. All right, cool. Go ahead and bring him in.
All right. How about now?
Can you see
Hey.
it? All right. You hear us?
Yep.
All right, we had
All
to
right.
change some
Yeah.
settings
Sound
here. Perfect.
It was on us, bro. It was not yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. How's it going?
Alaikum assalam. What's going on, Rob? Let me just. so I can get you-
Alhamdulillah, we're done 1 week of Ramadan. I had a nice chicken and potato and broccoli dinner. I was working on an article for Brother Abdullah Yusuf.
Yeah.
You guys need to have him on. He wrote Blood of the Levant, the Muslim hard science fiction novel. He's now
Yeah.
writing a magazine for Muslim men. He has like writers on and everything. So I'll let him know about you guys.
Inshallah, inshallah. Yeah. But so we were just kind of talking about this whole iftar thing, and how's it been going for you in Canada? Have you been able to kind of, get some of the reverts together, or are there any programs for you guys over there?
Well, we just started the Revert program a couple of months ago,
Uh-huh.
but we wanted to get the events in before Ramadan started.
Uh-huh.
So we did them all. We had a Quran 101 class, an Islam 101 class, and a couple of dinners. But now we're just trying to, have some do kind of things on our own and get the converts together for like a dinner on our own. So we got a core group of completely convert-led. It's kind of like we call it the Convert Wellness Caravan. We called it that because a caravan is like, as they move along. They're a self-functioning, society that moves, and then when they see someone stranded, they pick them up. So we liked that analogy. So we haven't had any dinners together yet, but we definitely want to do some, as soon as possible.
Mashallah, that's good, man. That's good. That's awesome. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think we need to. We were talking about this earlier that we're always eager to bring Muslims into Islam, right? We're so happy, right? Like we'll come in the masjid and everyone shows up and everyone gives them the hugs and you're part of our family and make dua for us, you're forgiven. Oh, you're like a newborn baby, and then right when they step out of the masjid, they're like alone, like they're alone for a long time.
I agree with you more. I've been challenging these assumptions in a certain way recently. I talk about this stuff on my channel, and I think that when the Muslim community invites converts for iftar or any type of Islamic event, I think that's wonderful. But I think we can't lose sight of the fact that a lot of recently converted Muslims, they live in their own sphere. Like Muslims don't really go out to these spheres, and sometimes for good reason, because they don't really want to be in non-Muslim environments. I know when I converted in 2003. Muslim community was very welcoming. They wanted me to come to all these iftars and everything. But, at the end of the day, you go home to your non-Muslim family. And honestly, even though I had many Muslim friends who I established for many years, they really had no desire to come to Amherstburg and meet my Muslim family for years, and vice versa. Like your non-Muslim family, even if they're accepting, they don't want to go to a mosque. It's not their turf. So I think a lot of these problems are beyond the scope of Muslim communities. I do think, inviting them for iftar is great, but I think for the most part, converts need to take the initiative and, kind of form their own wolf pack at the same time. So that way, you have people who are willing, to talk to your non-Muslim family, or at least to introduce you to their non-Muslim family. Or even if your non-Muslim family doesn't want to talk to Muslims at all, you can give them the best advice because, you've been Muslim for years, and you can point them in the right direction. So I think we need to realize that what I call the Medina model, assuming that everyone lives in the same sphere, because in Medina, everyone lived in the same city, everyone knew each other. That doesn't work in the 21st century, because we have multiple spheres living at the same time. So I think we need to take this kind of communitarian approach to converts. And, you see the success of Islam in Spanish and the African American Muslim community and Zoltzal Muslims. I think for communities that haven't really embraced Islam as a group, like, for example, either Europeans or Chinese Canadians in Toronto, like the Muslim community, they need to think outside the box and realize that, yeah, it's wonderful to invite them for iftar. That's great. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah,
so we want to give them
Robert,
the resources to. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of this stuff is great for cities like Houston, Dallas, Chicago, New York, LA, but the vast majority of converts are spread across the states, and they don't have the ability to form a community. There's just not enough Muslims to begin with. So, I totally agree with you. That would be great for converts to have these little gatherings or little spaces where they can feel comfortable with each other. But outside of that, it's just much more. Outside of the major cities, it's Muslims. The average Muslim is going to have to step up and follow up on their fellow converts, unless everything you're suggesting you just do it virtually and through virtual gatherings and stuff like that. But that even that has its place, but there's nothing that beats the face to face breaking bread on a table experience.
So yeah. I'm in this Muslim think tank group, right?
Yeah.
And someone had posted a very interesting a comment, right? And I don't want to read the whole thing, but I think it's I don't agree with everything, but I think there's a pretty cool, an interesting point here. And he writes that in a long post, but he goes, there is a critical mass now, both in I think also Western converts need to also grow up, and this is not the 80s where numbers are few. There is a critical mass now in both African American and Latino and white Muslim communities now, and with financial clout, and their need to now themselves invest in institutional and capacity building rather than expecting the immigrant quote-unquote uncles to bail them out. So I know that the tone of it is a bit harsh, but I think if we unpackage that for a minute though, I think what we're saying is that the number of Muslims now is growing, right? And I think to your point, Robert, that there needs to be a organization or a effort done by people who are not in major cities or who have smaller communities to now invest in their own communities. And whether that be a community of, if it's for African Americans, Latinos, whites, whatever it may be, or even just a mix of them all, but in smaller communities, right? Because a lot of this work has been shouldered and paid for by, I guess the older immigrant communities. And sure, that comes with baggage, right? Meaning that there's some prejudices, there's some, discrimination of some sort sometimes. But we can't take away the good that they've invested and they've put money and they've created these programs, right? But there comes a time where now, now as the numbers are growing, there should be some self-accountability in a sense that, hey, what are we doing now? Because now they have to also think, well, our children are Muslim now, like the reverts, their children are going to be Muslim. What kind of community do they want for their children? Because that's kind of the same thing that the immigrant parents were thinking when they created these things, right? So I think to some degree, the comment is relevant, meaning that, the numbers are growing. There's a huge number of converts now. And I think there is financial, there is ability, there is even to a certain degree, I would argue that there may be even ideas that we as people or children of immigrant communities can benefit from, right? Just being, I'm sure, people who have come from different faiths and different backgrounds have amazing ideas in terms of how to build communities, how to make them more efficient, how to make them more equitable, right? All those kind of things. But I think there has to be a larger effort for the quote unquote non-immigrant or like born Muslim population as well too. I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree to a large extent with that, Mort. I think we can get creative, and you don't need a large pristine masjid that you just break ground on from the ground up that costs like millions of dollars. I mean, even if you have a small community and it's a shed in like the backyard of your house, and it fits like 10, 12 people, or maybe it's just having dinner with people in your house and inviting them over for iftar there. You mentioned the virtual space. That's pretty much free. I mean, it has it doesn't fulfill everything, but at least it's something. And
yeah.
I think still though, I think if the Muslim community invests in this particular way, I think would actually save money in the long run, because if they to try to help out converts with our specific issues. Like, for example, let's say 100 people convert to Islam in like in any city, right? And 20 or 30 of them get kicked out of their parents' house, right? Now the Muslim community, technically speaking, has the responsibility of providing like room and board, for these Muslims, even especially if they're sisters, right? But with our model, that if you have a functioning, sub community of converts, you might actually have like an organization or an office space and someone there on the phone that can actually reach out to these families and allay their families' fears about Islam. And you may be able to prevent, you may be able to get the non-Muslim family to reconcile, with that new convert. So I think this, I guess this is a much leaner model. You don't have to, because I remember when people would convert to Islam on an individual basis at the mosque, when my first 10 years of being Muslim, they would just throw gobs of money at them, and it didn't address the main issue. It was just ill-advised money that's better spent elsewhere. If you just give us a fraction of that money, we can pitch in as well. We can provide simple solutions that have like enormous benefits, inshallah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot. There are better ways to do things that we're doing right now. I mean, I think in big communities like here in Chicago, I definitely want to see, more inclusivity, because just by the nature of big cities being more diverse, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're okay. But to your point, like in smaller communities, not everybody's going to be able to access a big community,
Yeah.
right? And they're just not gonna. There has to be a way to be able to create a sustainable model. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure how it gets done, but I think it definitely needs to be a conversation that has to be had in order to make that model.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like like I'm some sort of like ethno-nationalist or anything, but I do think that you have a particular origin, you have the history, you have your ancestors, and that's important to people. And as you guys know, and Mort and Sim and Sheikh Amr, you can all attest to this, that Islam never came to eliminate one's cultural identity, and I think people are in 2023, they're just becoming so individualized and so atomized that like everything is just a McDonald'sization, that there's just no like feeling that you belong to like a wolf pack anymore. But I think now with what we're doing at Islam for Europeans, what Brother Bilal's doing on the features, is like this. It's kind of like this Venn diagram where we're all united as Muslims. We're all united in worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all believe in the Quran and the Sunnah. So we're all united on that. And if, we want to go, if they're more than welcome to come to our masjid for iftar and vice versa. So it's not a whites only masjid or a blacks only masjid. But still at the same time, there's a feeling that you're part of this wolf pack that has a specific role, which is giving dawah to your people on a collective level. So
that there's also another area of social organization that's happening, and I'm almost wondering whether this form of thinking is kind of outdated, where we organize ourselves based on cultural identities and stuff, but it's more like I see my kids and how they organize themselves with groups and friends and stuff, and it's all based on interest. It's like they don't care about like their identities and their cultures, but like who's on Fortnite and which friends are more. The more aligned you are with those interests, the more likelihood you are to be part of that group. And I think maybe as Muslims, we may end up being, I don't know if it's going to happen like willfully, but I think it's just happening whether we like it or not. But people are organizing themselves based on similar interests and similar like feelings or attitudes towards movies, TV shows, and other entertainment avenues, whether it's even sports as well. Like, it's no longer, because culture has just become so washed out. No one even knows their culture anymore. Very few groups of communities still have some variations or some interpretations of or expressions of culture, rather, but the majority of them are. Most people are hanging out with each other, irrespective of what your background and what the food you eat and stuff like that. But it's based on, hey, like, do we gel and are we able to have fun together? You know?
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree to a certain extent. I mean, I think that for our generation, it just so happened that because our communities were set up that way. But I think the newer generation, like you're finding more intermarriages, you're finding more interfriendships, you're finding it's just more diverse. I think maybe that might be true for the larger Muslim communities, like in Chicago, New York, LA, right? Because I think they've just taken on the host culture, meaning that these places are inherently diverse, right? Because it's just the way that they are, right? The massive amounts of people, and so that naturally reflects in the kinds of Muslims that you have migrating there and the facilities that you're creating. You're forced to deal with many different types of Muslims, not only just by ethnic background, but even by political and religious persuasions too, right? Like we find that masajids have been divided among things like aqidah issues and political issues, and it's not so much more just based on race anymore or ethnicity. It's more based on, hey, do we have the same outlook on what Islam is supposed to be in our life, in a lot of ways, right? Like I've seen so many masajids spring up from a community that had a difference in the way that Islam was being presented, right, or practice, I guess you could say, and they went out and people with the same mindset, whether they be Arab, white, Pakistani, Hispanic, whatever, they ended up going to the mosque that they felt more acclimated to, right, or comfortable with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky subject because on the one hand, I can see what you're saying, Mort, and I've never been a separationist. I think like you said, like people. They organize themselves on cultural interests, like video games and whatnot. So, you can't force people to separate each other. I mean, that's, just not part of human nature. But I do think that, Muslims who come, who come from Muslim countries have a rich history with Islam, and their grandfathers were Muslims, their ancestors were Muslims. Like Islam is embedded into their culture for so incredibly long. And then they're coming to countries that have either no history with Islam or an antagonistic relationship with Islam. So like for example, if Muslims go to Korea, that's a different story because Korea really doesn't have much of a history with Islam. So, and to the Korean population, even though Islam, whether they think about it, if it's negative or positive, there's this impression that it's not for Koreans. Right. And I think, people do convert to Islam in Korea. It's on like an individual basis. And like you said, if the mosque if the overwhelming majority of the mosque, you're the only Korean convert there, it's good that this Korean convert is, keeping something from their culture, but it's not sufficient because, they're still just on their own. So I think at the same time, if they can form like if the mosque advises, look, the Korean converts, they should organize in the same way that we did. We can still communicate with one another. We can still interact with one another. We can still give each other all of the Islamic rights, even if it's at a very small level. Even if there's just a dozen Korean converts that create their own sub-community, then it will change the face of Islam in that particular country. So I think there just needs to be an awareness that a lot of these countries and cultures don't really have a centuries-long history with Islam. So,
Yep, I agree. I would also say though that that I can say in our own communities, like there are certain cultural things that have, at least in our generation, have been like we shed ourselves of it, like in some ways, right? Like we were talking about this earlier, right? Like remember, like if you, I don't know if you've been to like a predominantly Desi mosque, but like you would never find someone traditionally like putting their legs out, like laying down, right? Like in a Jummah khutbah, like everybody would find that to be offensive, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, like you find like people putting their backs against the wall and putting their feet out, and that's something that was more common among the Arabs, right? And before, but culturally, it was like a big no-no. Like, oh my God, if you did that, like you were disrespecting everybody in the masjid, right? But that's kind of been kind of shed away in a way, right? So I'm not saying all of it is gone, but I can see like bits and pieces of the culture kind of just going away, right? And a new culture of some sort being formed. And I think that's, to be fair, I think that is, as I mentioned before, restricted to big cities, not smaller areas and pockets of Muslim communities. I think they're going to have to carve out their own identity and their own culture, because I do believe that Islam does have subcultures, like the culture of Hispanic Muslims and African Muslims and white Muslims and Pakistani or Arab Muslims is different, and it's perfectly fine. They are different tribes, if you will, right? And the Quran mentions that you are to get to know different tribes. We're not all one people. So I do recognize that different areas are going to have their different subcultures, and I think as long as you know, people find a space that makes it conducive for them to be part of the community and to be close to Islam, because the whole objective of all of this is that people have a sense of community and identity, right? And if you don't feel that in the community you're in right now, it's going to become so much harder to remain practicing as a Muslim, right? It's one thing just to say I have to pray 5 times a day and, you know, do the 5 pillars, but if you feel alone and isolated and, you know, there's no social interaction and no belonging, it's almost inevitable that you're going to drift away from practices, right? Because you don't feel comfortable, right? And that's a big problem.
No, yeah. I mean, there. On top of this, Mort, I mean, there's a. If you've noticed, there's a large amount of mutual animosity between Muslims in the Anglosphere, and that can't be denied. I mean, we belong to 2 communities that, you know, if you put them in the same room together, it would probably turn into a brawl within like 5 minutes. So I guess we got to keep that in mind. So, but I have a funny story. You talking about the Pakistani mosque? There was this one Pakistani brother. I mean, Canadian, you know, first gen, you know, from originally from Pakistan, and he actually went to Pakistan, you know, to like visit it for the first time, and he came back, and he was telling all these crazy stories, like. The brother, he wears glasses, right? And he was praying in this Pakistani mosque, right? And he was praying next to this older gentleman, right? And as he was as they were sitting down before the prayer was over, he was raising his shahada finger like this, right?
Right.
Because back then, like everyone was Salafi, right?
Right.
So at the end of the salah, the old guy was like, he looked at him, he's like, "What is this?" Like, and the guy's like, "Actually, it's Sunnah, right?" So the old guy's like, I swear, this is what the guy said. He grabbed his glasses and he's like, "Is this Sunnah too?" And then he slapped his glasses off.
Oh my
wow. Wow.
Oh my God.
And you know what the funny thing is, that like it doesn't surprise me. Like honestly, like the I was telling these guys I went to part of this workout program I go to is you know this particular masjid has a gym in the bottom. So during the Ramadan shred, we work out in the basement and then we come up to do asr, right? So 3 times a week. But they have a very strict culture about what religion looks like for them, and I don't fit that model with them, right? Like I'm just different. Like, you know, for example, they don't believe like it's not recommended that you pray in a short sleeve. Like they want you to wear completely covered. So they won't tell me, but I certainly I feel it. Yeah, I feel like, you know, that I'm an oddball, but I mean, I recognize that, and the way I kind of process it is that I'm walking into their space. I know it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be their space. It should be the Muslim space. But I'm conscious of the fact that there are people who have this kind of set in stone mentality that it's my way or the highway, right? And so I can definitely understand. I'm not surprised by it, but I understand where you're coming from. That yes, this will happen, and that's why there's a need for people to have their own little communities because they feel more comfortable. Like, and these are not things that are like violating Islam. We're not saying that women can lead men in prayer, or nothing like that. This is just differences in culture and maybe even fiqh opinions that don't really take one out of the fold of Islam, right?
Yeah. We want to make it so because you guys are talking about inviting converts for iftar. We want to get to a point where the converts are so strong that we tell the Muslim community, why don't you guys come over to our house and we'll make you iftar for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, and that's Muslims in the 21st century and non-Muslim countries, they need to take this approach, and the more they do, inshallah, it'll
How much
benefits.
of that do you think that relies on the convert community, though? Because I mean, I'm not too familiar with the psyche, right? I don't know the whole process of how willing are they to actually, or how comfortable are they to say, hey, you know what? Because to be honest, if a brother invited me to his house, it wouldn't bother me if he was a convert. I mean, I wouldn't think of it strange, but I've never been invited by one, right? So I don't know. Is it like difficult for them? Like, do they feel like odd doing it, like that they can't do it, or I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? I think there has to be some willingness to also make the effort in some way, right? You know what I mean? Like, say, okay, I'm also reaching out as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, like like in the West, it's like non-Muslim Western societies tend to be very individualistic, so they don't really have this kind of like collective wolf pack mentality, right? So, and then you're putting yourself out there as well too. I mean, like converts themselves have their own issues, right? So like you may not be able to deal with that. Everyone's coming in with a lot of baggage. So I mean, it's very tough to navigate, but we have to start somewhere. So inshallah, this convert caravan we've got going has been pretty successful here in London, Ontario, and once we start picking more people up, we actually want to take this model and bring it to other masjids in southwestern Ontario and tell the Muslim communities, look, you guys need to help the converts collectivize, give each other's phone numbers, and like form a wolf pack, and then that way we can network more, and then hopefully inshallah have like a whole regional event for the whole region of southwestern Ontario, like an annual event.
But on that subject matter though, as far as the whole wolf pack mentality, I could be wrong here, but from the reverts that I speak to on different platforms, that is one thing that they gravitated towards in Islam, that there was a sense of community and brotherhood and a sense of accountability as a community as a whole. And I think a lot of them do want that. Like, that's what appeals to them. That many of them will say, when I became Muslim, so many people reached out to me, so many people gave me hugs. I've never felt so much love in my life, right? And although we as Muslims who are born, we say, well, wait a minute, we're just doing it because we're in the masjid, right? Like, we're like, yeah, it's the thing to do, right? But for them, it's such a new experience, and it's like, I've never felt this before, and I feel like, maybe I could be wrong, but a lot of them want to keep that up. Like, they want that belonging, right? So as much as that they have this culture of being more individualistic as Americans, as we are, or maybe North Americans, but I think they're also at the same time understanding that they're shedding some sort of their previous culture, right? Because there's certain cultural things that change as you become a Muslim, right? Not only just diet and praying, but even just the way you view community and view yourself and view your responsibilities, right? So I think part of them, they actually want to embrace that. They actually want to have that feeling. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I think, if you look at people who actually do convert to Islam and join a Muslim community or become like this, like a social media influencer, those are the ones who made it. I mean, like, the bar has been set very high for Westerners to convert to, not just to convert to Islam, but to convert to Islam and then join an existent Muslim community. Because, we always say, when it comes to converts, oh, mashallah, they're so much better. And I used to think that way as well, too. But now I kind of see it more as, like the bar has been set more and more high as the years go on for a Westerner, especially a white Westerner, to convert to Islam. That siphons off like the vast majority of just normal people, leaving only the people who are very extroverted and willing to, join these existing Muslim communities and willing to shed most of their identity and already have either a good relationship with their family or like it's the complete opposite. Their family's already completely rejected them. So, I think we need to keep that in mind because at the end of the day, we want our families to convert to Islam, but they're just not in the same. A lot of them just aren't in the same situation as we are.
Understandable. Completely understandable. Yeah, just one quick thing to people on TikTok. Yes, we our main broadcast is on YouTube, so the brother has joined from StreamYard. If you do want to join on live here and add a comment, just request, and I can bring you on as well too as in the conversation. This is kind of an open thing. We do roundtables on Wednesday, so if you want to jump on and say something about the issue, just request and I'll bring you on. But yeah, I mean, Rob, to be honest, I think it's also to some degree also applies to Muslims who are born Muslims and their families aren't practicing. Like I know for a lot of people it's very difficult. I've known of sisters who started wearing hijab and their families have ostracized them. Right? They really don't have, like, Ramadan isn't the Ramadan that you think they would have as a born Muslim. Right? It's just it's more of a cultural thing where it's just going to the bazaar and getting new dresses and just waiting up for Eid. Right? Like that's just pretty much that's Ramadan for them, right? And just getting together, right? So there's some, I think, overlap in the feelings there that that each person has their unique family situation that impacts what they what they're willing to do or how open they can be or how sociable they can be as well.
I completely agree that there's definitely overlap. I mean, like I know many sisters personally who were born Muslim. They started wearing hijab and their families ostracized them or kicked them out of the house. So we definitely recognize that, and I think there's a lot of overlap there that we can both agree on. Like there's still major differences between born Muslims and converts in terms of like whether it's like Islamophobia. So for example, the experience of like anti-Muslim sentiment is completely inverted for born visible Muslims and converts, specifically white converts, because like for them, their family's Muslim, so they may not have a problem with them being Muslim or practicing Islam, but when they're out in the Anglosphere, they're visibly Muslim. So that's an experience that I don't have to deal with, and I acknowledge that, right? But for us, it's a complete opposite situation. We feel like we can blend in with the Anglosphere. We've been here our entire lives, but our whole family's not Muslim. Yeah. So it's not worse or better. It's just a different struggle. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help us all in that particular struggle. But I wish, even if for Muslims on the progressive left, I mean, like even my detractors, I tell them, look, I want to talk to you guys about these things. We would agree on a lot. But none of them would take me up.
But you know how that went, right? We tried to invite one of those leftists, and they wanted no part of us at all. They're like, nope, those guys, no way.
We can't find one of them.
And that's I always find that to be funny, Sim, because like we're willing to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care. I mean, I think it makes for a good conversation, right? At the very least, right? But the unwillingness, like, and it's funny because they always talk about community and stand up, and because the whole idea, one of the biggest themes about the quote unquote progressive Muslim is the whole social justice and grassroots and community, right? But to have that, don't you have to have that open line of communication? Like you have to be able to engage your community. Like if you're not going to sit down and talk to us at least, then that means you're just kind of creating this bubble of people that think the same way you do, and you're not really building a community. You're just building a separate community.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of strange, but I mean that's a whole different topic. But yeah. I mean,
but does anyone else have any questions? I know Sheikh Amr, assalamu alaikum.
He had to take off. His nephew is leading Tarawih at a certain place, and he wanted to get there a little early, so he took off because it's a tight schedule. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, inshallah, got to see you guys one day. I don't have a lot of funds or anything, but I'd like to come to Chicago to see you guys.
Definitely, you're welcome. We've had people come in and we've hosted them, so we'd be happy to have you in the studio. And I think you'd probably find that you'd have a good time out here in Chicago, Sharif.
Yeah, inshallah, that'll be awesome. Do you guys have any other questions or comments?
No, I think I'm good on that side. I think we got your perspective, which is kind of cool. I mean, I think it was a good perspective.
Yeah, we weren't planning on making this episode very long. It's just a quick little intermediary before y'all go to your Tarawih and stuff like that. So, with that said, I'll go ahead and wrap the show up. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye bye, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just end it here on TikTok. By the way, guys on TikTok, hold on. There's someone. This is after this show. Let me see. Let me accept this guy. Sorry, I didn't get him on here. Assalamu alaikum.